Welcome to this episode of Applied Christianity. We're talking with young adults about everyday issues, temptations, and battles they're having. We try to find biblical solutions and examples to apply to these issues. At Applied Christianity, we want to do more than provide generic guidance. We want to equip you with tactics enabling you to see real progress. The war is much larger than people realize. The enemy is way too crafty to only fight him on Sunday. Spiritual, flesh, and worldly temptations are coming at us 24/7. Doesn't it make sense that you need more than a Sunday service to combat them? We're in it with you, alongside of you, and for you. So let's dive right in. Welcome to another episode of Applied Christianity. Today we're diving into something heavy, but I think really necessary. This epidemic of anxiety, stress, and depression, especially among our young adults. We live in a time with more mental health professionals, more medications, more resources than ever before. Yet every major indicator shows things are getting worse and worse mentally for our young adults and regular adults. According to the CDC, nearly 1 in 3 high school girls in the United States seriously consider attempting suicide in 2021. That's a 60% increase from a decade ago. Young adults report the highest rate of anxiety and depression. Suicide is the second leading cause of death of people ages 10 to 34. Let that sink in. Second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 34. That's just sad. Prescription antidepressants use has skyrocketed. Abortion rates are off the charts. And yet, during this time, it seems like our Christian faith is getting weaker, and weaker as we go through life. We've tried to fix a so deep issue with surface level solutions. We placed our faith in man-made systems, therapy models, and pharmaceuticals, some of which might help for a while, but we've ignored the deeper problem. We're drifting from the one who gives us true peace. Philippians 4:7 tells us, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything with prayer and supplication, and with your requests to God, give thanksgiving requests to God, and the peace of the Lord that surpasses all understanding will guard your hearts and your minds in Jesus Christ." There is a peace that doesn't come from this world, and frankly, the world can't provide it. The more we remove Christ from our lives, the more chaos moves in. In Applied Christianity, I'm kind of more like the Lee Strobel. I'm sure you read his books, Case for Christ, Case for Faith, and Case for Jesus. And I do believe that there is a level of faith we have in things we don't know or we can't prove. But I do also believe that there's science that basically validates our faith. And the more we look into science, the more I think it points to Jesus Christ and a creator. And so we start looking at this issue of anxiety and depression, all these mental health issues. I want to bring up something that, based on what God in his ultimate wisdom, how he designed your brain with 3 basic chemicals that help you experience joy and connection, and what happens with those when we remove them. And they are oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin. So if we look at oxytocin, this is what's called the bonding chemical. And this is basically when building trust, connection, and relationship. This is stimulated by physical touch, eye contact during the conversation, acts of kindness or empathy, deep conversations where you're vulnerable, worshiping with each other, helping someone in need. And so, visiting a friend, helping someone who needs help. All these things that we're doing releases this basic chemical called oxytocin that makes you start feeling good. So that's the first one we want to talk about. The second one, which is dopamine. This is the reward goal chemical. And this drives motivation, goal setting, and a sense of achievement. And this happens, and this basically is released when we do something we're very proud of, like cutting the grass, checking off any type of to-do list. Like we thought about something, we planned it, and then we did it. Getting positive feedback or affirmation for something you're proud of, learning something new, working, doing an honorable job, and giving it an honest day's work. Then you get this release of dopamine, again, that makes you feel good. When you're fixing something, earning an honest paycheck, starting a ministry, doing something that makes you feel good about your purpose. So the second one is dopamine, again, releasing this chemical that makes you feel good. The third one is serotonin. This is called the mood stabilizer, and this regulates our mood, our sleep, and our emotional well-being. And this is kind of stimulated when you get outside, sunlight, physical activity, exercise. practicing gratitude, positive social gatherings, reflection in prayer, healthy eating with good, basically health. All these things are basically secreting serotonin. Again, another thing that makes you feel good. Thanking God daily, exercising, cooking, being an active part of your church and working with people. This drug basically that's released when you do these things all make you feel good. So when we look at these three drugs, when we do these activities, they all make us feel joy and happiness and comfort. When people neglect their purpose, avoiding work or living on entitlements without contribution, what do you think happens? The world tells you is trying to force you into an area where you feel like you're getting over one. Hey, if I basically say I'm handicapped or I have an entitlement for this and I do X, Y, and Z, but I don't really have a purpose. I know that I'm basically avoiding or trying to get over on the system and not being honest. Well, then that dopamine drops, serotonin suffers, oxytocin just vanishes. This creates a downward spiral of depression, anxiety, anger, and addiction because God's design isn't being followed. Proverb 19:15 tells us laziness brings on a deep sleep. 2 Thessalonians 3:11 tells us encouraging people to work quietly and earn their own living. These things are actually helping us in who we are. Think about back in Genesis. When Adam and Eve were in the garden, he gave them a job. They were supposed to take care of the garden. They wouldn't just sit there and relaxing and basically just entertaining themselves. They had a mission and a job. And so God has a plan for us, and your body is designed for that. I always ask the question, is it possible for Jesus to be depressed or anxious? The Philippians 4:5-7 tells us not to be anxious about anything, nothing. So you're commanded not to be anxious. And so can Jesus be anxious? I think the answer is no. And one time I was in a couple's Bible study, and I just asked the question. I was like, do you think Jesus could be depressed or anxious? And is it because the reason we're having so many issues in our society is our lack of faith is basically spiraling downward? And could you graph a chart based on if our depression and anxiety is going up, is our faith lacking? And I have to be honest, there's a lot of people in the room that didn't appreciate that comment. And I was told politely that, I didn't know what I was talking about. And people face real depression and real anxiety issues that basically can only be cured by a pharmaceutical drug or a clinical physician. And I always go back to, it's like, the world created these problems. And why are people looking to the world to fix them? It doesn't make sense. It's like, do you really think for a second that the government is out to make you feel better? Do you think pharmaceutical companies are working so diligently to get you on a drug every day because it's going to make you feel better? Or is it just temporary? If you're willing to trust the government and a pharmaceutical company that don't know you and only making money off you, why aren't we trusting God, who only wants to love us and wants you to love him? And he designed you this way. How about we quit trying the world's answers and give God a try? Today's youth are locked into endless scrolling, isolated gaming, digital lives that rob them of their God-given blessings. Scrolling doesn't release oxytocin. Gaming doesn't fill you with serotonin. Shallow social media dopamine hits leave you completely empty. And that's no accident. These things are designed to stimulate artificial highs and keep you disconnected from real people, from your purpose, and from your Creator. So what's the answer? We need to reconnect spiritually. Prioritize your time with God daily. He is your source of peace. Build real relationships. Join a small group. Serve in your community. Pray with others. Live with purpose. You weren't made for anxiety. You were made for a mission. Limit the world's influence. I know people don't like hearing about fasting, but you need to practice fasting from social media. Stop comparing yourself to other people. Refocus your mind on the truth. Romans 12:2 tells us, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of the mind, so you may prove what's good, acceptable, perfect will of the Lord. Transformation begins, and then peace begins with you. So once we have an understanding of what we're designed for, and we start basically trying God's way, maybe we find the peace and the love that we're missing in our lives, and we start basically going in a different direction. Joy and peace aren't found in what the world offers. They're found in living with a purpose that God made for us. When you pursue Him and you serve others and stay connected in real community, your brain, your body, and your soul will begin to heal. Do not trust the world to fix the very stress it created. Trust the one who created you, who knows you, and will never fail you, and that's Jesus Christ. I hear a lot of people talk about, they'll say, I wish I knew what God's will was for me, if He would just tell me. Brothers and sisters, He does. If you look in 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18, He says, rejoice always, pray continually, and give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God for you in Jesus Christ. Jesus wants you to not let the world determine if you're happy. As your faith increases, all these worldly events go away. You start redirecting your purpose and God's purpose for you and God's will for you. If you try that, I think you'll see significant changes. Why we trust the world to basically give us peace, to help us mentally, physically, I'll never understand that. If you're willing to try the world's view and it's not working, and every stat tells us it's not, how about we give Jesus a try? Think about that. We'll see you next time on the next episode of Applied Christianity. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for spending your time with us today. We hope you found a useful tactic you can apply to your own situation. We're building a community here. Your feedback is important. If you discovered an approach that works, make sure you comment below. The one thing we don't want to do is to keep that solution a secret. Understand there are people struggling and searching for an answer to a similar issue. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at the Applied Christianity Podcast. Looking forward to our next episode. Until then, remember, the Applied Christianity Podcast is about real solutions for real people.